So welcome. I'm Beth Nordowney, and you are Siri.
I am Siri. Yes, and we're excited to have you guys here. And again, I know some of you guys are watching on Workplace or online, or if you watch us back, I always like to say welcome.
Mm,
We're excited to have you here. So,
yeah. And so today, if our plan was to have Bailey Edwards on in Oklahoma City. She is a team leader and a broker, and unfortunately had a last minute cancellation. So she's going to be on June 4th. So 1 month from now, she's going to come back with agent productivity. So today, Siri and Trinity, I was talking to her, and she's thinking about maybe starting a team and interested in that. And we are just always things that we can talk about. But I thought it'd be great if anyone else pops on too to use it to we can talk about being productive as an agent, getting agents into productivity, or even just kind of starting a team or whatever questions people have, which is kind of fun to do once in a while and just see where the conversation goes.
nice. Yes.
Yes.
And Trinity, where are you at? What area?
I'm in Maui, Hawaii.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So it's 7 a.m.
Maui.
here. I just woke up. It feels like I've been awake for 10 hours as well.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I love Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, gosh, yeah, you joined us from a way different time frame.
Yeah. And especially
Awesome.
7, yeah, this would be like just wake up, grab a cup of coffee.
In my bed. I mean, I'm really grateful to be on this call with you ladies, with some bubbly, beautiful ladies. So I feel good. I feel good.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What are we going deep on today, Beth? What are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, what are we
Well,
doing?
I was going to say, like I said, we can definitely continue down the agent productivity, some of the conversations we had last week.
Okay.
Or again, I see Cindy's joining Claudia, or just kind of like ask questions. I mean, it's up to you. I can talk on anything. And I know sometimes people join a little bit late, and so can you, but
Yeah.
more using this time for what people want to hear. I think that is a good use of time too.
Yeah.
And again, we can take whatever time is left and do it a little backwards today. So
Cool.
if you're joining Claudia or Cindy's here listening, if there's something that you want to know about teams, starting a team, agent productivity, because like I said, Bailey had to have a last minute cancellation, which is totally get it. That happens in life sometimes. Anything that you want to hear that we can talk about, we would love to do that. Do you have anyone have any challenges they're facing, questions that they're wondering, maybe even something that got you to come on this call today? Call. I think call everything a call. Like seriously.
Everything's a call. I think,
Everything is
yeah,
a
so I,
call.
I think what we want to say, and hi, both Cindy and Claudia, welcome, is last week, and I don't think even any of you guys here were on last week. We went into a little bit more of our slideshow, our just kind of more of our presentation on agent productivity, and we were talking about different things like that.
Mhm.
Today, what we want to do is really open it up to more of a roundtable, so we can talk a little bit deeper on that. You guys weren't there last week. So agent productivity obviously is awesome, right? Because that helps the team be sustainable and grow. And without our agents and the income that they have coming in from that productivity, how do we run the team? So that's a super important
Make
thing.
it
But
into
at the same,
productivity. No.
yeah, right. So at the same time, what else do you guys want to talk about? Because that's what we're doing today. We don't have slides, a big agenda. It's a little bit different today in
Mhm.
general. So I want to actually just kind of open it up and have you guys unmute and join us. And we're not going to take the show, so to speak, as we normally do on this one. So Trinity, awesome, cool.
Yeah. So that is definitely like one of my goals, is to have my business run without me having to be super present all the time and be able to train people. I think the biggest challenge I'm facing at the moment is just getting a productive schedule for myself. I ran a team at the bar and I'm trying to transition those same concepts into my daily life along with just normal life things. And lead generating in the way that suits my comfortability and not so comfortability, but like just like suits me the best and like the things that I like want to actually do with not overworking myself. And yeah, I guess how to start a team and just kind of an outline of the things that you guys think are valuable to train and walk them through when that time comes for me. And even for myself, because I have to train myself first before I can train others. So,
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay. I would love just to kind of keep this momentum of a round table going. So Cindy, Melissa, welcome. Madison, Claudia, can you guys help us answer some of this with Trinity, knowing where she's at? And then Beth, maybe you and I can just kind of help fill in
Mhm.
some stuff too.
Mhm.
I would
Mhm.
love to go that direction if you guys are down today.
Mhm.
So what can you guys offer back? Because I know some of you guys are, elevated in your level of building a team. I'd love to hear. Hi, Cindy. I see you. You're like I'm going to say something.
You're gonna say something. I can tell. I was watching her too. I'm like, she's gonna
I
say something. She's gonna go. Yeah.
was.
Hello. I wish I had my jacket on too. I love my sweater. That's awesome. So that's great. You're sporting that. Love it. Um, wow, that was an action-packed question and
I know,
right.
right?
That's
It's
an
like a
entire
year. It's like
seminar. That's an entire seminar. So I think it would be important to really break it down as to, where are you at today and, creating, what you have at this moment and creating your whole playbook to where you want to be. So I don't think I can really properly answer that action-packed question.
I agree. I think let's start with Cindy. This maybe like, what do you think if you could think of one or two tips like in your schedule? Like when you think about, if you think back, like when you're an agent that's producing, and also if it's starting even a team, any advice that you have on your schedule?
yes,
Um,
schedule.
Scheduling for me, the most important thing with creating a great schedule for me is waking up in the morning and doing something for myself and taking care of my mental health and my physical health so that I can be in the right mindset to move through whatever the schedule is on my schedule, as well as being able to be flexible with that schedule. So, for the scheduling component of my daily schedule, waking up and taking either a 3 to 5 mile run or a 2 mile walk helps me get into the mindset to being able to handle everything that is thrown at me. So that's my
That's
number
great.
one.
I think that is a huge win, and it took me a lot of years. I personally didn't do that, and that's something I still work on today. But I think especially as women, this actually came out of therapy at one point, right? Where I would get up and get the kids, get the house, do breakfast, do whatever, and I would get to the office, and then I'd start. And I remember my therapist was saying, well, you should be exhausted by 9 a.m. Like you've been up since, right? Like 6 or 7, you've done all this stuff. And so it was that shift of, taking that second, right? Or if it's a run, not a second, a second's even better than nothing. But taking a walk, taking a run, she always used to say, grab a magazine, whatever it is for you, right? Like flip through it, whatever's fun, look at Apple News, fashion, but just, and then like you said, Cindy, is really focus on like knowing, I think for me, it's a little bit the night before or first thing. Sharon's productivity is really good, you guys, right? Of like looking at my calendar and committing to it for the day, but then also just doing something for yourself so that you are ready for the day. That's so good. That was really powerful. That's
So
great
one of
advice.
the things early on for me is, and then everybody's going to have different ways because I'm at the point right now where I don't have my kids necessarily. I have to get them out the door ish. I mean, I have a 13-year-old, so but he's pretty easy. But at one point, and I don't know if any of you guys know, I have 5 kids, and at one point, and I've done this for over 20 years, so you can imagine it's been mixing the kids in with all of that. And so at one point, I didn't really have the liberty, so to speak, of the schedule that I have now. However, I always did take time in the morning to do most of my work. And I always I had a treadmill in the house, for example. I had a treadmill because I knew the kids wouldn't let me like leave. I'd had little cameras set up. I'd get on that treadmill and I would just put this time in the morning. And I did all this without being coached or knowing what I was doing. But I did create a little bit, the best I could, sense of time for me, get the kids off, do my prospecting. I then read a book called The Miracle Minute. Is that what it's called, I
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. The Miracle Morning.
And
Miracle,
the
the
Miracle
Miracle
Morning, that's what
Morning.
it is, the Miracle
Yep.
Morning. And the Miracle Morning is basically saying how important that morning is to set the standard for the rest of your day.
Mhm.
And that, then I looked at what I was doing and said, okay, I'm kind of doing this, but I do need to block this out so that this is a for the most part, a non-negotiable of my mornings. And so I just now do it like it's just a thing. And again, I have the liberty where I don't have my kids in the morning and all that stuff. So if you don't have that, make sure you preserve your morning. Then on top of that, my Google Calendar, I'm telling you, it is my life. And
Mhm.
if it's not on my calendar, I don't know that it exists or not. Um, I follow that very specifically because here's the thing, we all have the same hours in the day, all of
Mhm.
us. And sometimes you wonder, okay, how can this person get this much done? And I'm only able to get this much done. So there's two things that I would say plays into that. One is you have to really be on your calendar and your schedule and follow it. And you've got to train your agents on this too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether they do it or not, you got to keep at them. And you've really got to train them to follow this. And so you've got to follow your schedule. You also then have to find leverage. You have to find leverage in how you can get stuff done to be able to still sustain the growth that you're planning on taking on, because it's going to be growth and you're not going to be able to take everything on. And then the third thing is, I will tell you, you're not going to have a lot of time back. It's going to be a grind for a while. And even now, 6 years into building my team, I'm still working long days, long hours. I'm working weekends. I don't, keep track necessarily of like, is it a 40, 80 hour or whatever. I just work. And sometimes I have to literally time block time in to make me stop
Yeah.
and, kind of enjoy the roses. I think what us team leaders do is we show up on this stuff and we make it just look so pretty, so beautiful. You'll see our social media and it just looks like we're off on a trip somewhere and we've got this going over here and it's all amazing. And running a team is kind of almost makes it look like it's easy. And I'll say, as a real estate agent, when I was just solo, I'd be slinging all these escrows and I made it look so easy. And it was like what they didn't see was all the behind the scenes that are constantly grinding. And so, a lot of that stuff, and this isn't to like scare anybody away from building a team. This is like I would tell an agent that's getting into real estate. I'd say the reality is this, and these are the things that you're going to have to do and expect it to get grindy. And you have to really know why you want to have a team. If it's to get more time back, you actually probably won't get more time back. I'll be transparent in that. You'll just have it differently organized, is what it'll be. It'll just look a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my long answer on all of that stuff. And not to ever discourage or anything, but just to really give the good hard fact of, you really have to be ready to do this all in, get your schedule together, and then know that it's going to be a build process. It's like literally you're building a house, and
Yeah.
it's going to start with the foundation, and then you're going to build that stuff up. I think that's where Cindy was like, okay, where do I begin? And I love
Yeah.
that she started with that, truly. Yeah.
I feel like right at this moment, like that is definitely the goal in the upcoming years. But right now, I would say for the next year or so, my main focus isn't to build that team. It's just I want to set myself up for success. So when that day comes, not that it's going
Mhm.
to be super easy, I'm just going to know where to delegate the certain tasks that I
Mhm.
can hire someone else to do. Um,
Perfect.
for the mental and physical health, I do that every single morning.
You live in Hawaii, you better
Yeah,
be out
Yeah, you
I'm
better be,
blessed.
right?
enjoying. I
But I
know.
do need to be better about just remembering and reminding myself, like, hey, you're going to take a yoga class after work tonight. You don't need to take a yoga class in the morning. Go for a walk, Trin. I have to be better about
Yeah.
telling myself those things. But with the Google Calendar, one of the questions I have for that, because I think the thing that I'm feeling the most overwhelmed about is, and I'm transitioning to this AI platform soon. I'm going to set it up today, but it's just like there's Google Calendar, there's iCalendar, there's all these other different apps. And it's like I have my handwritten calendar because I'm definitely like that kind of person as well. And then I'm like, oh my God, then I have Google Calendar. Did I put in Google Calendar? Like, let me go put in iCalendar so I have it on my phone. And it's just like I want to transition it all to one. You guys would recommend then probably Google Calendar, especially because for team wise, I should get
I
probably
do. I mean, I think it depends. It's the only one I can speak to. I just think that if you have the intention, and like Siri said, it's something you want to do is have a team or a business, is as much as you can think, and that's the most challenging thing that we didn't learn right away is, you're only thinking about the three of you or the four of you and maybe the five of you. I wasn't thinking about the 50 of us, right? And
Yeah.
so if you could just think about, and I know everyone says, and we all started the same way. Like we all start with like, I don't want a big team. Like I don't want a lot of people. Like I just want to help people. I just want to do this extra business. I just, you know what I mean? Want a couple of agents. So that would be just a huge win, even if you started with the mindset of like, look, I don't know, but could this handle 10 or 20 people? And what would that look like? Because I think that that's one of the things that's nice about Google is it's just easy to integrate. You get the G Suite. You can go to the workplace, right? We've got the
yeah.
docs and the sharing and the calendar. And then like what you're saying, Trinity, is at some point, like Siri said, we all live and die by our calendars. Every person who's running this like organization or just a life that's really packed. Okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a team. Is that like having one calendar? Because every time, you try to have multiple calendars, right? You see it already that where it's like, oh, I don't have this calendar, or it's on this one, or I got to check that. So it's just going all in with whatever systems that you have and using them and then having the right ones to scale. You're going to add something,
Well, and
Siri?
here's the thing, on a technical level, you can have on Google, you can have other calendars. So if you have iCalendar or different things like that, you can sync those other
Mhm.
calendars up. And
Oh,
so for me, I just have Google that I pull up, and then I have like a family iCloud calendar, from our phones, and I have that going in, and so and I have it all color coded and stuff like that.
You're going
And
on
we
one.
have
Yeah, you're living by the one. And like you said, everything can talk to that.
one hub, but all of that goes in. So that's just more of a technical system kind of a thing that you have to get set up.
oh, I didn't actually.
And yeah, yeah,
Okay, I'm
And I
gonna.
yeah.
think the other thing I was going to say when you're starting a team and really early on, that was helpful for me thinking back in the beginning is there's like Sunday through Saturday, right? And the way that real estate goes, most people start and you're still doing a lot of real estate. So you work on the weekends potentially. And Monday to me was always like this, get back in the office, you're doing paperwork over the weekend, lead follow up, whatever the open house, whatever you're doing, it just seemed like that was a lot of that. Tuesday has historically always been in real estate land, like a big meeting day, right? Like, for years, it's been Tuesdays. Wednesdays, and when I've coached a lot of people too, is historically pretty light. Thursday, you're getting ready for the weekend. So sometimes I even started with thinking about like, okay, so if Tuesday's kind of like a team day, and maybe Thursday's a team day, but like when you even talk about bigger blocks of time in the beginning of when do you focus on your real estate production and maybe setting time aside for growing the team, whether it's vision, strategy, what kind of team would I want, what kind of business, and then what days with those. And then, like Siri says, nothing probably changes. We all have the same hours and they're very busy. It's just you're substituting in different things, right? So maybe in the beginning, it's the development and the foundation of the team, and then maybe someday it's like development and foundation of the people who are on your team during that same time, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I'd recommend too with that calendar is, and Liv, you're gonna understand this one, right? So like Liv is our creative director on the team, right? So Liv. So I mean, Liv has a lot of projects, and trust me, like I'm every day throwing her little like rando things of like, hey, do this, let's do that, and all this stuff, right? And so we're trying to catch all this stuff. At the same time, she's working on building this training system in a system called Kajabi. And we just worked together a few weeks ago, and she's like, I don't know, when I'm going to have time for that. And then I have all this stuff here, and I just, it's kind of like the creative juices just kind of were getting all discombobulated. And I speak that language too. I have to have order in order for me to understand what I need to work on, which is why the calendar's great. And so we talked about, hey, Liv, why don't you just time block on your calendar an hour or two, every few days, every day, or whatever it looks like best for you, so that you know that that is your dedicated time to work on Kajabi. Put your phone on airplane mode, do what you need to do to make sure that you don't have the distractions. And I mean, I'll let you speak on it, Liv, because you just started it, but like just something as simple as that is going to be helpful. And then us as leaders, it's our job to direct and help when we see people that are needing, that help. So you working on you or other agents on this call, I love what you just said, because you're going to work on you first. You're going to see how this works for you, and then you're going to be able to provide that guidance over, to your team. Hey, this is what I see. This is what works for me. This is what I suggest. But you're going to be kind of the guinea pig. So, I mean, I don't know, Liv, if you have anything to add on that, but
I think creative brains and real estate agents have similar minds. It's just like a lot going on, so many ideas, so many different places, like things are trying to do at once. And so like a real estate agent, I mean, being an independent contractor doesn't have naturally a lot of structure to their day. I mean, they kind of run their own day. And, I'm kind of in charge of my day as well. Like I need to get this stuff done. So like Siri said, being really intentional about blocking that time out is really helping me, because otherwise things will it's like 5 minutes here and then an hour and a half on this project. And then, oh yeah, I forgot I was working on that, but then another project comes up. So, and I feel like that's what happens with agents too. So it really just
100% with agents.
Yeah, across the board, just doing that time blocking, like this is when I'm calling people, this is when I'm doing whatever. I know we've tried to implement that with our agents too.
I'm gonna highlight that for sure. I think that it would be really helpful for me to time block my own training, because that's when I'm like, sometimes I'll like be doing other things while I'm training myself, and I'm like, Trent, like relax, like just sit down and like do this, So yes, I think time blocking is a really essential thing, and I might just even ask like ChatGPT to create one for me. Oh,
I have
cool.
I'm gonna show this. I mean, I'm so sorry. Like I'm in here trying to figure out how to flip this. And it shouldn't be that Olivia, like it's not that hard. I'm like, this stuff is like,
Hey,
I'm like,
no, believe me, sometimes the most simple things are
and
like
everyone
way
turned
too
their heads to the
complicated. Yeah.
side. But like, I think the one thing that was helpful for me, and I coached this a lot when we started, is just to think about the year big picture. And then this would be like a blank one. I'm happy to send it out if anyone wants, like we can send it this week in our newsletter. So this is a blank one, but I'll show you what this looks like, kind of real world is, I'm so sorry. Hold on. I'm going to stop share for a minute, and then I'm going to pull up the right one. I want to show you, and so 2018 for me was 8 years into running a team. I can't tell you what size it was at the time, probably about maybe like 10 or 12 people. But this is what that looks like for me when I did it on a Google spreadsheet. And so what you guys are talking about that was really helpful is to just, this is like big picture. I love colors. This is where Liv is so right, like marketing people and like real estate people. But do you see, like, this was just like, if I could build out a perfect week. On Monday, I told you, was like a really big day where it was kind of like, okay, in the morning, I just want to do an accountability check. This still exists today with, 50 people. Is a team on track for the week? Monday morning is like, am I on track? And is the team on track? Like we all maybe worked on the weekend or didn't, but let's kind of get everyone together. I did some check-ins. Then I always had project time and then lunch, and then you can see. But even if you start with something of blocking, like you're saying, Trinity, of this is what I'm gonna do training, this is what I'm gonna work on marketing, this is what I'm gonna do recruitment. So at this point, I think I was out of 18, 19, 20, I was out of production. So you can see I don't really have a lot of producing, but it was a way to, I can show you ones where you can block in production time, appointment time, etc.
That'd
Maybe
be
that's where it
awesome.
starts. And then I think it's always good to, like, I had to remind myself, like, what do I need to do monthly? Every month I should look at my numbers and my budget. Biannually, quarterly, I did reviews, and then annual. And then I always had this list of projects I was trying to work on. So I've done that for years, and I think it's just helpful. And like Siri was saying, it just evolves over time, but it's starting with that 101 version of it, where maybe it's like, you know, you guys have all learned that, right? As even it's an agent, like when you work on, you know, when you take appointments, when you do your lead prospecting, when you do lead gen, when do you work on marketing, and just kind of having, like you said, that structure to the week is really important, because the world is so distracting. So otherwise it's like, I'm doing a training, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And pretty soon you're like, what am I doing? I don't even know.
50% off on a bikini website. Let me just look at that for 2 hours.
I was seriously thinking about if I could do that. Yesterday I was thinking if I could do that in a social media video, like show how you like get to a place and you're like, how did I even get here? And like, what am I doing? Right? Because you're just
Yeah, and it's so funny too with I think that doing that on the Google Calendar and creating a spreadsheet for myself would be so helpful. So thank you for sharing, because I'll be in my notes app and I like write down the same things every day, but I rewrite them and I'm like, I'm wasting so much time doing this. Like if it was already just there for me, I wouldn't have to continue to do this. Like, and I keep doing it, but I think that would be much more helpful. So thank
Oh,
you. I took a little
awesome.
picture.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm more happy to sharing that stuff. So that's awesome. That's a great conversation. Any other, like Claudia, Mari, Melissa, Cindy, anything else on schedule or questions that you have, or things you want to, advice you want to give? Needs? As I can keep going, you could talk about schedule for a long.
And I'm here, I'm just transitioning
Yep,
to my
I know you are.
home.
Yep.
Okay. I have a listing appointment. Speaking of scheduling, I have a listing appointment that showed up on my calendar at 11. And I'm like, wow, got to do this and get there at the same time. So,
So one
you
of
know,
the things that's happened, I don't know if this happened to you, Siri, but this happens where why I said one calendar, and I'm running off of 2 right now. And then it is really amazing, because what happens is, if you don't have that one calendar that the team is interfacing with, if they can't see some of those things are on another calendar, but it's showing up on yours, like as far as, you know, you can just see it, you get exactly what happened to Siri. You get scheduled to do something when you're supposed to be somewhere else. That
I'll say
right?
what happened was admin side put us down for 9 o'clock on the team calendar. And so the ISA scheduled for 11. So that was kind of an error, but exactly that, right? Like, you know, sometimes these things happen and then you just pivot and run and, you know, make it work. But yeah, what else do you guys have? I love really kind of like meeting you guys where you're at, because I think that's what Beth and I talked about. It's fun to get on and do this at the same time. Everybody's at different points. And so how can we help you at where you are at?
In the meantime, go ahead. If I'm going to wait, see if someone has something.
I was going to chime in and just say my schedule got flipped today. And as much as I was saying first thing, I have to do my run, I had to do something more important, dare I say more important, but open escrow this morning. And so that did throw off my run. So at this moment, I am changing my clothes and my dog is staring me down, holding me accountable because I did not take her.
Hey,
So
I'm
I
glad
do.
it's not just me, Cindy.
Oh yeah, there are those mornings. So great to connect with all of you this morning, but I do have to tap out at the moment.
Thank you.
So much. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
take care, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
And in the meantime, if someone doesn't have anything, I'll go back if this spreadsheet seems like, Melissa,
Yeah.
it's helpful too. And let's roll with this for a little bit. So this is kind of when I coach, this is, what I use is like, if you're interested, it says in exploring kind of freedom in your time mastery. And I just said this yesterday to a team leader. It sounds so simple, but I still do this today, to this day, is like, if you can just commit to tracking for a week or two, like what you're doing with your time, like it's amazing. Anytime you're doing, it's called a work audit. And they do this even when you're looking in a business world, right? Where it's like, what am I doing? And sometimes we don't even realize. It's like, oh, wow, I knew I was doing social media. I didn't realize I was spending like 20 hours a week on it. And there's no right or wrong here. It's just looking at like how you're spending your time. And then it's kind of like you can look at that information and it helps you know when you need to change. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling like I'm just not succeeding, it's a great time. There's a lot of things that trigger this. I used to do it, like I said, I'd create my perfect week, and then once in a while I just felt like things just aren't working, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my time. This is where I stop and just start. I just like, okay, what am I doing with my time? So if you track your work for a 2-week period, and you just, not everything you're doing, but everything that you're spending more than 30 minutes on, okay? And you just want to write everything down at the end of that 2-week period. Highlight every task that moves your business forward. And I talk about this a lot, or generates revenue, because it's amazing that like you can work 40 hours, and you can work 40 hours for months and honestly like generate, let's say you generated like one deal. This is like really low, but like this works for agent productivity even when you're thinking about it. And I use this a lot to bring it full circle back with agents, where it's like, great, I have one in particular where it's like, okay, I know you met with all these people and you're going to these networking and you're doing lunch and learns and you're going to the title events and the mortgage events and you're meeting all these people. And so from that work, you've generated 3 sales. Okay. So let's say to them, that's a net of, let's just say $20,000. That's even high in my world. Okay.
Yeah, it is a little different out here, and I think that's one. I love this. This is going to help me so much because I'm really relating to what you
Yep.
are saying. Um, I guess one of the questions that I would have in regards to this is like, I have a great database. I know that, and
Yep.
I think that it's like I need to transfer my database to Google, and also like figure out a way that I feel comfortable to contact my contacts. I think that's what I'm struggling with at the
Yep.
moment, because I keep getting more contacts and continuing to talk about my business. Like I was proud of
Yeah.
myself yesterday because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to talk to about my business, and I was, to like at least 3 people. But I need to get better about reaching out to the contacts I already have.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah. And so this is the same. And so I like what you're saying. So even when you think about it is different, like, but to finish, like, so if this person made, let's say $15,000 and they worked for 3 or 4 months, like and that's, again, that's really high. Usually this like average out where it's not worth it. Like the time that they're doing, it doesn't yield it. It's no different for you. I coached, someone in Maui, Patrick, what was his name? Frantic. He's a real estate agent. And he would say, I get it, because it's a long haul. It's a less deals. What you're doing on the daily still matters. It's the same math, because it's like, if you do, 2 for the year transactions, and this is the money you have, like, what did you have to invest in to do it? And so there are things that you're doing, like exactly what you said, is calling your database and having conversations that identify, are you somebody who's thinking about buying and selling in the near future? Or if you were, would you use me as your agent? Is something that's moving your business forward, and it's something that literally at some point you could say this created revenue. Because what you're collecting people right now, which if you're just collecting people, does that move it forward? Well, sure, you have more people you can talk to, so it does. But it also, like, is it generating revenue? No, that's where you're kind of at right
that's
now.
where
But
I'm
putting
kind of
things in.
stuck right now. Yeah.
Mhm. And so that's where it's like planning out this week. And this is where, like I said, when you plan out what that looks like. So for you, and that doesn't matter where you are. Like I said, I coach people in Dublin, Hawaii, the United States, the South, the East Coast, New York, California. It doesn't change. There's some universal truths where it's like, Are you having conversations with people? And so for you, it sounds like one of the things that's needed is like a communications plan. And so it's like a communications plan of like, what are you going to say? Why are you going to call them? Right? What's the purpose? Because sometimes if we don't have a plan, most agents get stuck in thinking, and again, in productivity, that's a big thing in agent productivity on teams is like, well, I don't know what to say to them, or I text them, or I email them. It is not the same. And I can tell you when you're doing, I live in a world where it's like high transactions. So we get to see data that's, a lot of, again, it's easy when you get big numbers because big numbers just show data. It doesn't matter if it's less or greater. It's the same where conversations is what makes the difference, that human connection. If we run campaigns and we run automated plans and we are only texting and calling people, our conversion rate is low. Once we integrate in phone calls, it goes up. And so first of all, the first conversation that I think is really useful in agent productivity is to say, like, if you were to buy or sell a home in the next year, do you have someone who's your go-to? Do you have a trusted advisor? Do you have someone that you would go to in real estate? And most people, 50% of people are going to say, no, I don't. And 50% of people might say, yeah, I do. But the conversion on it is 50%. So if I have 100 people that I know, and this is again, new agents or agent productivity, and I say, okay, call the 100 people that you know and just ask them, like, if you were to buy or sell a home in the next year, like, who do you have a go-to? And a lot of people are going to say, no, I really don't. And you're like, awesome. I would love to be that person. Let me tell you what that would look like. Now you need to have a plan, like, of what does that look like? Do you have events? Do you have a blog? Do you have a newsletter? Are you going to keep them updated on their home value? Like, this is all part of that is like, what are you going to do? And so I think that that's something that's a big, you've listed off already, Trinity, right? I mean, in this one call, it's like, as far as like schedule and structure, starting a team, like you can start to see like how many things go into it as far as, what do you want to do with these people? Before you start calling them, that's why you get stuck, is because you're like, I don't even know,
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I feel like I do know what I like with the listing, like I have an entire plan and I feel very comfortable talking about that. With the buying side, I I wouldn't feel completely confident, especially because a couple of my clients, for example, I know that they're going to want to sell their home, but it's going to be contingent on their home selling, and the other home like is going to have to essentially say yes to the contingency, like, hey, like I can only buy this home if my home sells. And so working with those kinds of things, I do have people I can call. I think that I overwhelm myself with that, and I just need to make the fucking phone calls. It's just, I need to make the phone calls. And I've been like training myself on those kinds of things rather than making those phone calls. And I need to just start holding myself accountable in that way for sure. But I think with the weekly schedule, creating one of those for myself, and then time blocking is going to be super, super essential to start training myself. And yeah, all of this stuff is really helpful. So thank you. There's lots of work that I still need to do. I've been working more on the creative sides of my business, which I obviously really enjoy doing. And I think that's the basis, especially because I feel I'm going to feel confident when I do hire those people on my team. It's like, it's all going to be there, but I'm organizing all the things I've created at the moment, and then also juggling social media because my plan is to also be a full-time YouTuber. So it's just like interesting to do all of it all at once. So yeah. I appreciate you guys though. It's a lot for me too. But yeah, trying to narrow it down for sure.
All right. I mean, I can keep talking about anything else with schedule or agent productivity. I can go a different direction, but Claudia, Mari, Melissa, anything else you can put in the chat or
Hi, good
unmute?
morning.
Morning.
I'm sorry, I am at home with a 1
No
week old.
apologies. No apologies needed. Like, I feel like we're in a world, like it doesn't, I always say I should have said that, like, we're not going to call if you don't have your camera on, but like, you don't need to, you just ask
Yeah,
your question, you say hi. Doesn't
I
matter what's,
am like
yeah.
a zombie on no sleep with a newborn.
Yeah.
I have 5 other kids, so I have a total 6 kids. We have an office of like 50 agents, and so it's
Oh,
just busy. This was really, really up my alley. I
Hey,
think one
I
of
can
the
relate to you.
I know I was gonna
There
say
you
Siri
go.
can relate to that. So you can have one
I'm
more.
not,
Say it.
yeah, I'm not
yeah.
doing my camera because I might lose you guys just like because I'm driving. But hey, that was like ring a bell. Tell me more.
So I think one of the things that I struggle with is I think drawing boundaries when it comes to what I can do, right? So like I literally I gave birth last Monday and I was still at the office that day. And so that's terrible, right? Just because like you can do
No,
it, you
I just
should.
have like goosebumps if you could see. Like I know Siri's the same as me. Like I just it like it hits at such a deep level. And Siri and I talked about this at the Elevate in Colorado with some other women on a panel. But like, no, I could literally cry for you just because I just like I know you're saying it's not wrong, but you just keep going. Okay, so boundaries, yes.
No, yeah. So I think that's kind of the thing, right? It's like you feel guilty about drawing boundaries, especially in industry like this, like where, I feel like as women, we always kind of feel like we have something to prove. And I don't want to make the fact that oh, I'm having a baby or I'm pregnant the excuse why I can't be there for my team or for my clients or whatever the case is, right? Because my male opponents don't have the same struggles. And so, but it's okay. Like, that's one of the things I'm learning is just it's okay to take some time off. It's okay to not be able to do it, to, postpone a training, to have assign it to someone else or delegate different things because man, it's really, really a struggle. And that's why I wanted to jump on when I seen because although I shouldn't be working right now, I'm sitting here going through my emails, watching the baby on the swing. But yeah, I think just as important as it is to be organized and plan your schedule accordingly and have, your calendar all outlined, it's also important to learn to draw these boundaries just for your own sanity.
So Mari, like I love what you're saying, and it really is everything we're talking about today. One of the things, and like Siri and I have said, we talked about this, is like you will be as a woman and as a mom and as a business owner and as a team leader, you will be out of balance, right? For probably a lot of your life. So as much as we can control over it, time it becomes really important. And I like Siri said that earlier, not to ever take away from like, yes, this is a grind. Yes, that you are going to have sacrifices. Yes, you're choosing a path that is different from some other women or moms, not right, wrong, or otherwise, right? So you have to remember that. The one thing is like I wish I again, it's not something that it's one of those things. It's hindsight is always easier. That it's a marathon. This is not a sprint. So what you're doing is something that you may want to do for 10 or 20 years, maybe 30, I don't know. But then, like you said, you're in this season right now where you've got littles and you've got this is your life and it all has to fit in. So when I talked about that perfect week and that blank calendar, the first thing you put on is like personal time. So when you draw boundaries, for example, I used to think it was easy because I was up with my girls when they were little because they were young and they're up early. And I would start doing business or I would do it in the middle of the night, whatever. But I realized that like for me, like I would not take a phone call. So 8 a.m. All right. Today it's really more like 9. And the reality is 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is when I start work. Okay. Prior to 9 a.m. Maybe it is like being a mom, taking care of yourself. And then what time do you quit? Okay. And the thing that always worked when I had and Siri can speak to her version is I would say, here's the thing. I am going to make a commitment as a mom that I'm either going to be home for dinner for my family or I'll be home for bedtime. Some nights and a lot of nights, maybe I can't be home for both. So it was kind of like one or the other, but I tried to like have an end time. My end time was always, and this is another boundary for my team. To this day, we all do it, is like it's about 8:30. After 8:30 at night, nobody's living and dying in real estate, and it all can probably wait till the morning. If we're negotiating a deal, of course, that we would finish that until 10 or whatever it takes, 10:30. But I stopped answering team member questions. I stopped doing real estate productivity, emails, all of that at 8:30 so that I could have downtime to be able to sleep at night or to be able to put the kids to bed. And that's like those first boundaries. If you start putting that on the calendar, you look at the time that's left. maybe right now, Mari, you're in a season where it's like, where does my team really need me? And that's what I have. And there's maybe some projects or things that are going to move the business forward, or things that in a perfect world would be great, where either you need to maybe lean on the team or outsource it. Or it just doesn't get done right now, right? Because there's, like Siri said in the very beginning, we all have the same amount of hours and we all have the same amount of time. But I think some of those, even telling the team, and it sounds really crazy, but it isn't. Like, everyone understands, all the team leaders, we all quit. And if there's something that you need after it, you can text, you can email, you could try to call, but we'll call you back in the morning at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m.
Yeah, that's really awesome what you're saying there. I think one of the non-negotiables for me that I really try to stick to, and and I forgot to mention this, my husband's also an agent. He is a lot newer in real estate than I am, so he's still learning a lot of things, so it makes it a little bit different, right? Because there's things he can't handle just yet. But picking up my children from school, that's always been very, very dear to me. So that's like a non-negotiable thing, even if that means that's my lunchtime. But I go pick up the children, bring them home, eat with them, spend a little bit of time, and then probably head back to either appointments, Zoom, whatever I have to do. But and I think that's made a huge impact in them because they look forward to knowing mom and dad are going to pick me up from school.
There's studies done, and again, probably being a guilty mom for a lot of years, there's so many studies that show that quality time is more important in the children's development and memories and love, and you're seeing head nod, than quantity. So I always just made sure, and again, that's not always easy. I try to always, like you said, pick the times that you're going to be quality, and you're going to be present, and you're going to be with your children, like you said. Not taking phone calls, and there's always the exception to the rule, right? But for the most part, like, ours was dinner, where to this day, if I like have a phone on the table or call, the girls are like, you know the rules, you know the rules. They're 18 and 17. But that's just is how precious that time is to them, is that dinner hour and my presence with them. And so I love that you said you love picking up from school. That's such sacred time that, like, you need to honor it, and they'll remember it their whole life. And that's so key to honor that. And then, like I said, everything has to fit into that. Like Sharon just did. If you guys this week, I could talk about Sharon. I obviously listen to a lot, but I love what he said about this weekend in his email about trading time, right? And you just have to be better. You're Claudia, you and you're just like nodding. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's just like, you have to trade time. You only have so much time. So what are your non-negotiables, like he said? So for you, it's like, that's one of them. That's great. And like you just honor that. Siri, anything you want to add? Maybe you have had like a
Huh.
yeah, right? I know,
Yeah.
where do you even start?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Like, Beth and I have kids that are older now. So on the flip side, I kind of did a pulse check with my kids. They're in their 20s now, adults and stuff. And I was like, so how was it? How did I do? Grade me. How was it? Like, did we survive? Did we make it through together? And unless they're just being really nice to me, they said yes, thankfully. We did it. You did a great job. They all know that I work hard and I worked a lot. That was never a thing that was out of the topic of our conversations. Mom's a hard worker. She was always working. They got that, but I love what you guys are talking about is those boundaries. So like for us, we always had to sit down at dinner. You guys are sitting down at dinner and we're eating together, and my kids played sports and all that stuff. And we made time to 90% of the time we had to sit down for dinner. And so that was important. And I love what you're saying, Beth, about, the quality versus quantity. I think as moms, and so because we have got women on here, I think as moms, we put a lot of that pressure on ourselves to say, okay, we're not around that much and we're not doing enough and all that stuff. And actually, it is that just time. I used to love my car rides with my kids. I would say, like, if I was dropping them off or picking them up or whatever it is, we'd blast the music, we'd dance around, we'd have fun. And maybe it was only 15 minutes because I was getting them to a friend's house, but that time was like super impactful. And I typically would try to make sure that I wasn't on my phone or whatnot, And so I also found leverage in, having food delivered, and maybe I have to pay a little more, but I have the ability to, have the groceries delivered and dropped off. I remember at one point I paid my house cleaner $25 more well, first of all, I had a house cleaner. It's totally worth it.
Yeah.
had paid her $25 more to fold my laundry. I was just finding any which way I could to leverage my life to spend more time. At the same time, sounds like you have a beautiful family. Don't get down on yourself. You're rocking it. Your kids are watching how hard you're working. They're super proud of you. So keep doing it. And then, so that's like your family side of it. For the team, set those boundaries, let them understand it. They're going to be fine. Leverage people. If you need to bring on a VA or another person, see if that financially makes sense for you. Or another thing is just let it go. So you know what? It's just not time right now. And that's okay. You'll do it later. Save it for later. It'll all be okay.
And all of that is true. Like you said, Instacart, all that, and it's scary to spend the money, but then once you do and you get that time back, I echo everything Siri said. And I also, like I said, my girls are 17 and 18. And to tell you, like, when you have those moments and you think, and I can tell you, I mean, if I shared my story, it's, you'd think I'm not mom of the year, right? With spending all the time at work. My one daughter who's graduating high school this year, when I asked her, I said, something about like, I don't know how I got this, but she's like, I want to be like you. I just want to be like you. You're successful. You're, I mean, she listed off all that stuff. You work really hard. You were really good with money, like all those things. Like, and so all those things that I just felt like, failing at over the year is one of those where in the end, like Siri's saying, they're gonna love you because you love them because you're putting in that intention in. And so I think it's just like you said, taking advantage of leverage in your schedule. So that's like warm fuzzy. I think I'm near and dear to both Siri and I, and is, just like I said, as women in business and running these teams, and it's not an 8 to 5, and it's a crazy life. It's amazing that you guys are all part of this, and it's fun to be like, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna work out. Just to keep going, just one foot in front of the other. Okay, anything else? We only have 5 minutes. Anyone else have anything just before we kind of wrap up? I think that's what I love, is always like things to talk about. It was a really great schedule conversation. So I think again, and just to your point, Mari, like this is a good time to like revisit your schedule, right? To map it out again for this time in season. And Trinity, for you too, is just kind of that, hey, what am I doing with my time? And sometimes even if we track our time, then we can see if it's worth it or not, what we're doing, and make adjustments. Schedules are fluid to a degree. But it's like having, especially I think today, it's really important because we can spend a lot of time working, and not really see anything come from that. And especially with agents too, it's amazing doing those work audits with agent productivity, how often they think they're working, and when you sit down and have a conversation, it's like, well, what is coming from the work that you're doing? And it's like nothing. And so it's a hobby, really. You're spending time on a hobby, and you're spending like 10 or 20 hours working, and the other 30
enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, but I would like to make some money now, it's tough. And it was cool listening to Mari as well, because although I'm not a mother yet, I plan to be one day, and I'm a workaholic, so setting those boundaries is going to be super essential for me, especially I feel like having a newborn and like doing all of that. That's good job, girly. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank, thank you guys so much. I think a fun fact I forgot to share is my kids all range from 1 week to 18. So I
So
have
that.
everything in between. So I'm going through so many different stages. I have my 4-year-old sitting literally to my left right now. We have a 6-year-old, two
Queen.
10-year-olds, and then a 18-year-old.
I can relate. I have a 16-year age gap. Yeah, I can totally relate, because it's almost like using different muscles in your brain, and you got to kind of flip around what you're doing and help the kids at all angles. You're doing an awesome job. Keep it up. Also, one more quick tip with the agents. One thing that I was told, because I'm always, real estate agents, we're always kind of like Johnny on the spot. How can I help you? Customer service, all that stuff. I was told a long time ago, like, just pause Siri for a second, unless it's like a red alert kind of thing, of course. Pause. And guess what? People usually figure this stuff out. So I've learned that there's this pause, and you got to figure out what that pause is for you. But if an agent reaches out and they need something, and let's just say I pause and I don't reply for like an hour, I'm going to tell you, most of the times they figure it out. And you're like, oh, great.
Awesome. I'm glad you figured it out. You know what I mean? It's just, they can get really reliant on us unless we set those boundaries.
No,
Very true.
absolutely. I think so. I think so. I think so. They become very dependent. And I think that's not the goal. The end goal is for everyone to be pretty self-sufficient,
Mhm.
right? And not depend, like, I'm there to support you, but I'm not gonna like hold your hand through every single thing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You want him to be self-managed, and that
Yeah.
whole Chinese proverb, like, right, what does it say? Feed a man a fish, feed him for life, or teach a man a fish, right? Or feed him for life. That's whatever I said. I shouldn't even try it, but exactly. Like, and that's what Steve was
Yeah.
saying. Pause.
It's
Um,
interdependency is
yeah.
what you want them to be. Yeah.
So that's awesome. We're back on the 22nd of May, and then it was kind of, to me, I love the synchronicity of, I don't think Bailey would really mind, but she's got 3 under 3, and it was like a family, like emergency, like, I mean, that she had to not be here. And it is crazy that it ends up being, we talked about that, and I know she felt terrible, and she's like, I can try to be on, and I'm at this and this, and it's just like, just stop, right? You're just, things happen, like kids come first, like you need to be there, and we'll get you in June. But so I it just is ironic that this was not a planned conversation today, but it ends up being kind of just something pretty perfect, and yeah.
So I do have to, we're on, I have another Zoom meeting,
Bye,
but
thank you. All right,
Thank
bye.
you,
Thanks,
ladies.
everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.